Hey everyone, good afternoon. We are the US Bank team, and I hope that we can present something that's pretty exciting today and won't waste any of your time. What? All right. And are we good? Good? No? What do you need? Do you want this on? Then you should. It is plugged in. Good? All right. Continuing. What? Well, no, that's we're good. We're good. Anyways, sorry guys. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope not to waste anyone's time today and present something that's pretty exciting. And the thing that wastes everyone's time is typos. The worst problem in IT is a TOIP. I can't count the number of times as an intern my supervisor would always type that IP wrong. His 6 key was busted and he refused to get it fixed. It was too much effort. So in a network deployment for our firewall, this was the exact issue. So anyways, typos can cause misconfigurations, and misconfigurations can affect any IT department. They can result in time wasted, frustration, and unnoticed issues. So how do we fix these issues? Well, that is exactly what US Bank asked us. How do you ensure a desired configuration for an environment by leveraging a code repo and an infrastructure as code approach? A desired configuration is like a stencil. You can take that stencil wherever you want, and it will always be the same. A code repository is a place where you keep your files and contain all your changes. You can use this to discuss and share your work with others. Infrastructure as code means you're no longer going to devices and manually typing everything in. You additionally document and script your entire code. Additionally, you would work on this as a programmer would go about their code. And last, conformance. Conformance is about making sure the configuration is correct. We document what code and patch version we're on. And additionally, we would verify the identity of the device we're connecting to. Before we get into how we completed this challenge, we'd like to first thank our advisors at US Bank. Our relationship with US Bank was one of exploration, and they would always give us great feedback during our meetings every week, and they were really interested in just how we came to our conclusions. Additionally, we'd like to thank Nam for coming to our meetings every week. I know it's hard with the class, and additionally, our weekly meetings on Friday to just discuss infrastructure as code was really helpful. And also, just thank you for UW Stout for providing equipment for all our classes. It's really nice to have individual equipment for each student to work on. So now let's meet our team and how they brought a diverse thought process to this problem, and additionally, what we all learned over the semester. First, myself. I'm Keith Grenier. I come from a family where you make it happen. And before I was a Marine Corps, before college, I was a corporal in the Marine Corps as IT. And for the last 3 years, I've been an engineer associate. And for the last year, I was an advocate for IT infrastructure on campus. And over the semester, I learned how to delegate tasks. In previous leadership roles, I've always been the one to do everything. And it is very nice to take it from the other side. Additionally, over this semester, I learned a lot about the CI/CD pipeline and just coding practices in general.
Hey, I'm Dylan. Much of my background is in networking and troubleshooting, so I was able to help our group implement networking concepts as troubleshoot those issues as well. And the main things I learned throughout the semester were automation and software development practices.
Hey everyone, my name is Joe Messina. I had a lot of fun working on this project over the semester. It was very humbling at times as well. I pride myself on bringing a very hardworking and flexible mentality to whatever project that I'm working on. And over the semester, I learned a lot about Ansible and automation as a whole. And I'd like to think that I became proficient at wireless as well. Another thing I wanted to say was that these guys and every group that's presenting today put in a lot of hard work and time into these projects. So I hope you guys enjoy what we got today.
I'm Keegan. I really love doing the dirty work on projects, all the stuff that everyone else doesn't like to do. I'm also on the track and field team here at Stout, so I've had to have a lot of good time management with this project. And I learned a lot about the CI/CD pipeline. I didn't know anything about that coming into here. And I also wasn't very knowledgeable on Ansible, and I feel like I fairly am now.
Hey everybody, my name is Nick. In my free time, I like to focus on cyber defense and pen testing. Throughout the semester, we learned a lot, but mostly what I learned was automation and the coding practices that are behind it.
Hi, my name is Tyler Salmon. So I transferred in from a technical college with a large security background. So I graduated as an associate's degree as a cybersecurity specialist. So I have a lot of extra security classes and education that I went into. Along with that, we have everything with the CNIT programs, such as the AWS and cyber technology ethics. Also, I have a CompTIA Security Plus that's about to expire, so I got to renew that. And then I like to compete in like National League on my free time.
And my name's Andrew. I'm blanking on the moment, but I knew this would happen too. I brought to the project my relevant coursework here at Stout, as well as time I spent troubleshooting on IT help desk. The big thing I learned in this project, I came into this with zero idea what CI/CD was. Through the project, building the pipeline, and working through the different pieces and putting it all together helped me really build a foundation of what a CI/CD is and how it can benefit anybody. Now that we've met the team, let's move on to our design. Our design consists of a basic router on a state topology consisting of a router, a switch, an ASA, and as well we have our GitLab runner, our virtual WLC, and our TFTP server hosted on our virtual VMware host. Our goal for this was to deploy baseline configs and configurations for our tests that we run, which I'll go over in a minute, from our GitLab repository. For our repository, as I mentioned, we chose GitLab. It is very easy to set up and does not require an orchestrator such as Jenkins, and offers a built-in pipeline that we were able to build and deploy. Here you can see a screenshot of our GitLab repository. As I've mentioned, this is where we stored every config file for all of our devices in our topology, and as well where we stored all of the scripts needed to run the tests within our pipeline. Here you can see an outline of our CI/CD pipeline and the different tests we run through. This pipeline is run on a Ubuntu machine, which is referred to as our GitLab runner. And we have the different tests it run through every time a change is made on our repository. When a change is made on our repository, all the files within our repository are brought to the runner, so our tests and all of our configs are the most up-to-date as they can be. Now we'll move on to the first step in our pipeline, Ansible Lint with Tyler.
Yeah, so Ansible Lint is a 10-year-old open source software from GitLab or GitHub. And from there, its generally main primary purpose was to be code prettier. And code jargon, that generally means that it needs to be nice and easily readable in a format. The secondary goal of Ansible Lint was also to make sure that any critical errors in Ansible playbooks were automatically caught beforehand, so it's a very light pre-checker, especially with formatting. So what we have here on the back on the presentation screen, the first one is the first playbook. It shows a critical load failure. That's why we wanted Ansible Lint in the first part of our pipeline, so that it shows that it is incorrectly formatted and it will not run the playbook at all whenever running through Ansible. The second one is just basic and moderate errors that could possibly interfere with that Ansible operation. And the last one is generally just a spacing in the comments, which is just making it look nicer. Now on Dylan with unit testing.
Thank you. So this is the next stage in our pipeline, unit testing. So even though both these configurations on the screen, they're incorrect, they will pass Ansible Lint. As you can see on the left there, the IP address command is spelled incorrectly. So if this is in the middle of your playbook, half the playbook will be put onto the device, but then the bottom half will error out. This can cause a lot of issues. And then on the right there, the network is actually wrong. So this will be put onto the device, but your network will not work because this address is incorrect. This is the solution to the problem. We created 2 tests that check for commands as well as our variables. We explicitly define all the commands, and it will check it if. And then on the right there, it checks our variables, IP addresses, VLANs, network statements. As you can see on the bottom, it passes both. And then we also found a way to utilize the up-and-coming AI tool, ChatGPT. That is basically a general purpose chatbot that you can ask it any question you like. We take the commands from our playbooks and send it to ChatGPT, and we say, is this command a valid Cisco iOS command? And then we tell it to respond with yes or no. So this is basically an easy way to tell if it passes or fails. It's a very powerful tool, but as you can see on the screen, we had to add any entry with description is valid. This is because anything with description would respond with no. So really, this should only be implemented as an additional check for now, as well as there could be potential security issues as well. Now back to Keith.
So Ansible really is infrastructure as code. It was developed for network automation, mass deployments, and really it's for large enterprises. Some use cases for Ansible are to deploy a new site. All you need is SSH. And additionally, you could make multiple changes at multiple WAN sites at once. So to demonstrate the power of Ansible, we're going to have our ASA baseline playbook here. And first, we're going to just show you that we can't connect to the device. And when we go to our ASA, we can see our host name is default. And additionally, if we run the packet tracer command, we can see we get dropped. That means we can't reach the destination. Packet tracer is basically a utility tool to check end-to-end connectivity between two devices. And then if we go to our CLI, we'll enter in the command ansible-playbook in our playbook. Ansible is very nice in the fact that you can break these things up into multiple tasks and see where exactly your playbook will fail. When it's all green, you can see that it's all good. And if we go back to our ASA, we can see that the host name is now Capstone, and our packet tracer command has now run successfully. And now Nick will talk about PyATS.
All right, so PyATS is a tool originally developed by Cisco used to automate testing in networks. The reason we used it mainly is because it contains a large amount of tools that specifically relate to Cisco, as well as its better CLI output. So this first example we have here on the screen is a simple test. It's basically connecting to the router and the switch and then sending out a ping to all other devices on the network to make sure everything's working as it's supposed to be. And this other test we have here, it's doing something similar. What it's doing is it's connecting to the router and it's verifying the sub interfaces have been created, and then it is letting you know on whether the check passed or failed. These automated tests are implemented before, during, and after your CI/CD implementation. And I'll be throwing it over to Keegan here to talk about Napalm.
So Napalm is a Python library that uses a single set of functions to interact with multiple vendors using a unified API. And what we're using it for on this project is to check for config drift and for compliance. Now you may be asking, what is config drift? Config drift is essentially when your configuration on your devices gradually changes over time and eventually becomes inconsistent with the requirements of your business. The way that we use Napalm to do the checking for the config drift is you upload your candidate configuration to the device, and then it will compare that configuration with the running configuration on the device, and then it'll output that to a simple text file that you can easily read. And as you can see here, each of those lines have a plus and a minus, and what the pluses mean is that's what the candidate configuration has that the running configuration on the device does not have, and the minuses are what the running configuration on the device has that the text file, or excuse me, the candidate configuration does not have. And there's an option to either completely replace the configuration or to merge the configuration. And now Napalm compliance, we defined a set of rules in a YAML file. And this can be anything such as serial number, model number, interface list. And we compare that to the configuration on the devices. And if it is the same, if it meets those rules, it'll pass, otherwise it'll fail. And as we can see here, we're testing for the host name, the interface list, the model number, and serial number. They all have to be specific what we defined. And in this case, they all pass, and the CI/CD pipeline continues. And now Andrew will talk a little bit about WebEx.
So for notifications on this project, we chose to use Cisco WebEx, which is similar to Microsoft Teams. Cisco WebEx allows us to easily build a bot that allows us to connect to it using an API and a Python script. We have it set up so we get a notification whenever a change is made anywhere in our repository. And as well, we have it set up to get a notification whenever our pipeline passes successfully or fails. Now Keith with our last demo.
Thank you. So if you were in our environment right now, you would see our wireless network of USB tests. For this demo, we're going to be VPNing into a device on our network and showcasing a update playbook to our virtual WLC. And while I do that, Joe will explain more about working with a WLC.
So as Keith was saying, we'll be applying our playbook to our WLC. For this demo, we wanted to note a few things that were important going about this. For this demo, you'll notice that there is a task that deletes our baseline SSID. This was necessary because Ansible has a tough time referencing things that are already in the system itself. Respecifying it, deleting it and respecifying it fixed that for us. The next thing that we wanted to note was VLANs. So for VLANs in this update, we wanted to specify 2 VLANs. And in the policy itself, you can either nest 1 VLAN or an entire VLAN group itself. Creating a VLAN group was our solution for this. And then for our last one was deleting the AP. Similar to deleting the SSID, we had to delete the AP as well. This unbound everything to it, and it allowed us to reapply the policies that we created in our tasks. One sec.
Sorry that didn't show. I just alt-tabbed, so I thought that would show up, and it did when I tested it. But basically, it ran through the playbook just like the initial Ansible playbook that we had. So sorry for that. But moving on, what is the value of implementing the CI/CD pipeline? Why put in all this effort? Well, first, testing. Testing allows you to make sure that your proposed network will function as you desire, and you don't run into those day issues where there's something random that went wrong. Second, you can verify. Verifying your configs means you can check the commands you have. Say you have 2 people working, one makes the playbooks and one tests the playbooks. The person testing can now verify that the person making the playbooks has done that successfully. Third, history. With the CI/CD pipeline, you have the catalog of changes with your commits. Additionally, you can work with Git tagging to document code version changes. And lastly, speed. To demonstrate the speed, we'll showcase our pipeline working in action. This encompasses everything we've talked about today: Ansible lint, Ansible unit testing, PyAts. Generally, this is pretty fast, and it will vary depending on how many checks you have in your pipeline. But for us, it's about 5 minutes. So if we had another month, or if we were to do this again, what would we do differently? We would look into alternative CI/CD tools. We look into something such as Ansible Semaphore, which is a GUI-based CI/CD tool. Additionally, we'd want to look into the validation of our commits, naming convention, and Git tagging. Over the semester, we had a lot of different names for what a playbook was, and SOPs are great, but if we could automate that, that would be even better. Additionally, we'd want to make sure Git tagging is always updated, not once a month be like, oh, maybe we should add our tag to this version. We'd also want to look into Docker images. Docker imaging would be great to put on our GitLab runner and also for our developer PCs. This comes with the benefits of containerization. Additionally, we could distribute our developer PC easily to new coming employees. We would also want to look into a virtual testing environment. A virtual test environment would be a replication of what we actually have, and it would allow us to first test without destroying our live network. We'd also want to make a knowledge database just to share how we fix certain things with other people in our team easily. And with any project, there were hurdles. Some of the hurdles we encountered for myself, just knowing how to distribute the workload. There's a lot of great tools in CI/CD, and so there's a lot of overlap in what tools can do. So making sure that I can showcase a tool can do this one thing, and then it doesn't overlap with another. Generally, for the ESXi, it's just that we don't use it, so that's our unfamiliarity with it. Network design, as I stated earlier, trying to make a virtual test environment. We were trying to think, do we add it, do we not? The WLC, in addition to, we work with the WLC regularly, but we usually do it through the GUI, so we're not familiar with the CLI implementation, and we needed that for Ansible, so we'd have to go to the GUI to see what changed when we did that. Also, the Ansible plugin has since moved to DNA Center now, so we had to work with a different Ansible plugin. For some reason, between our ASA and our CSR, the port would go down randomly, so we'd be like, what's wrong? And can't figure it out there. For our pipeline, this is just us not using Linux every day, so just basic things, trying to brush up on those. And in general, for documentation scarcity, it doesn't just apply to Napalm. A lot of the things you look at, it's like, this is how you get into the program, but they don't show you like the way in depth of how to do things. So in general, we considered quite a bit of things. Generally, we're trying to stay to what the statement of work had, as that's the real application of this project. So security was something we looked into. We could do roles with Ansible, which would allow user permissions. Secondly, password encryption with Ansible Vault, hiding those passwords. AAA just for our routers and switches. And then additionally, we considered using GitHub, but GitLab was a little bit easier and to spin up. And additionally, we put quite a bit of effort into this project, about 630 hours. As you can see, there's kind of like a bell curve towards spring break. But we got it back up there. So, but everyone on the team put in a lot of work. I had a great time working with everyone. Communication was great. So I would love to work with these guys again. Well, if there are no more questions, thank you guys. You guys have been great. And the next group will be exploring the power of machine learning in network automation. Thank you.